For decades in show business, there was a specific, final consequence for being fired by a legacy institution. If a major network dismissed you, the lights switched off. The mainstream path effectively ended for your career. In 2019, Saturday Night Live hired comedian Shane Gillis. Almost immediately, past podcast clips surfaced online, and the network publicly rescinded the offer. Before independent media took hold, losing a flagship network slot meant a quiet retreat to local clubs. But the infrastructure of fame had quietly mutated. There was now a question of where a comedian goes when the traditional doors are locked. Subscribe to the channel as we explore how the comedy landscape inverted its own power structure. The Shane Gillis firing is a historical marker. A network executive made a unilateral decision to end a career, and for the first time, that decision didn't stick. To see why that dismissal failed, we have to look at the old model. Success required a rigid sequence: local open mics, a set on late-night television, and a network's final approval. Executives in control rooms decided what the public would see. They filtered content based on broad demographic metrics, choosing who was allowed to reach a national audience. Earning a special or a sitcom deal meant passing through these checkpoints. Comedians naturally tailored their acts to fit the exact specifications of the network executives who signed the checks. This top-down structure prioritized advertiser safety over creative risk. The result was a heavily sanitized output, where the edges were often sanded down to avoid offending a broad audience. This period is marked by the moment traditional broadcasting merged into a decentralized digital grid of independent platforms. RSS feeds and YouTube created direct lines of communication. The power to choose moved from the distributor's desk to the listener's pocket. Without executives policing the length or the content, comedians released unedited 3-hour conversations. Listeners responded to the exact lack of polish that television networks once worked to eliminate. Media studies describe this as a shift toward participatory culture. Audiences stopped being passive viewers and became active participants, building communities around shows and sharing highlights across social media. By removing the middleman, creators monetized this engagement directly. Through platforms like Patreon, a podcaster with a dedicated following could generate millions in revenue without a single traditional brand sponsor. The internet operates on what Chris Anderson calls the long tail. Rather than chasing 10 million casual viewers, comedians found that capturing 50,000 hyper-devoted fans was more profitable and provided more creative freedom. In 2013, Tony Hinchcliffe launched Kill Tony, a podcast that ignored every rule of television production. It began with 9 people watching amateur comics get 60 seconds of stage time. It was unscripted, often chaotic, and provided immediate, unfiltered feedback that a studio audience would never be allowed to give. The show eventually moved to Austin, Texas. This geographic move led the show to break ticket records at 6 international arenas and achieve historic sellouts in 13 more. Instead of focus-grouped performers, the show leaned on wildcards and outsiders, people considered too high risk for a network broadcast, but perfect for an online audience. With physical hubs like the Comedy Mothership, the digital audience finally had a place to congregate. The online feed and the live ticket sales began to feed a self-sustaining cycle of growth. By weaponizing the unpredictability of live performance, independent creators built a product that rigid television networks were physically unable to produce. The scale of success has fundamentally shifted. While cable ratings drop, the new podcaster elite is filling stadium seats that were once reserved for rock stars. Legacy media eventually acknowledged the shift. Companies like Netflix began signing multi-million-dollar deals to acquire live events and specials from the independent creators they previously ignored. 5 years after Saturday Night Live fired him, Shane Gillis returned to host the show. He arrived not as a newcomer seeking a break, but as a superstar with his own production company and a global touring record. Traditional media is no longer the gatekeeper. It is now just one of many distribution outlets for creators who have already built their own audience. The hierarchy of entertainment has reversed. Top-down executive control has been replaced by bottom-up audience validation. In a fracturing media landscape, viewers choose creators who offer a direct, unfiltered connection. Authenticity has become more valuable than high-budget production. The legacy gates still exist, but the executives behind them can no longer lock the door because the audience already found